Hi, is this coming on? Is this working? It looks like it. Okay, some of you may not understand or know who I am or have followed what I do, trying to promote the cause of treatment and understanding and particularly schizophrenia. But in light of a recent shooting involving an ill person mentally, uh, has brought my thought power to the magnitude of my magnanimity to the subject of these shootings that go on in our society in the United States. And I've come up with an idea that first let me say this is my idea, and if it ever happens, any companies do this and make this. This is patented on July 9th, 2022. It's the current date and time, 2:30 a.m., quarter to 2:45 a.m. Eastern time. So, this is my idea. If anybody profits from this, I deserve a bird dog fee from this, some kind of payment, or some kind of percentage or something, because this is a good idea. They're too good work. Listen, these shootings that occur, there's no option to legal force. I talked to the police chief, local police chief, last week before, I don't know, and I called him. I said and he called me back. We talked about 5 minutes, and I said, explain to him what he didn't know. Being much younger than me, he didn't know. And for you, the viewer, let me say, who's talking here, is if you read my book, it'll tell you in there somewhere the details of all these two occurrences and everything else in between and around them. But there was twice in our small town where I had to be stopped in 1987 in March and again in May of or no, I wasn't stopped in March that year. I became sick that year in '87. I was stopped in September of '87 and spent a year in the hospital, state hospital. It was no fun, believe me. But the medication they had for me at the time didn't work with the catch-22. There was another incident in 1994 then in May where I was taken off the street, surrounded by gunpoint. I was deployed by the local police department as a psychotic person on the loose in town on my motorcycle or whatever. The whole story is in the page 97, on that part of the book about this surrounded at the grocery store parking lot by the police pulling up around me and so as somebody who this was done to at one time, and I wasn't shot because the guns were drawn on me, did it register in my mind what that meant that could do to me? Not a bit. I welcomed death. I was had death delusions that a UFO would take me, and I would press the buttons myself on brainwashing, I called it at the time in the book. And what went on in my mind at the time, I was writing about it in the book. It was psychotic before medication finally worked. But sometime after this last time I was picked up in '94, I spent 8 months in the hospital and had to fight them with a grievance when new medication was a new generation of medication I had waited 14 years for at that point was my only hope of understanding why I kept ending up there in a nut house being told I'm schizophrenic and that's my legal address. Just get used to it. So I didn't like that. So I had to understand it and I was waiting for a second generation antipsychotic. And when it was introduced to me, it was like overnight. There's other videos you can watch on YouTube that tell you that Susan Culbertson is celebrating my 25th anniversary, and it's still going strong at 27, going on 28 years now. It's not being having a relapse because I take medication, obviously, or I would be that way again, psychotic loose in the street. So that's where this idea comes from. This is who's saying these ideas. That's who I am. Okay, and my story is in that book, In the Grip of Paranoid Schizophrenia, third edition, preferably. And so that's what it's about, is out of control people in the street. Or then it extended into another thing on another day, sleeping on, waking again, rehashing it in my brain. And I said, well, this would work for the gun control. Like they want to call that word, those words are feared by some and welcomed by others. And, so I'm not calling this gun control. I'm saying this is an option to lethal force. Talking to the police chief, he said, well, this were invented, the device was like this were invented. He can't imagine every police department in the country wouldn't want one. Okay, so I'm saying on another day, a few days further down the road, thinking about it, I'm saying, well, this could extend to, weapons could be made. We're talking about for two different things. A weapon that could deliver this device, along with a lethal, a two-barrel gun, even a pistol for police to use, or for private citizens who are legal gun owners and want to own one. They should have the right to own. And there's profit in this because there would be a demand for it. If you understand what I'm talking about here. A pistol, I don't know much about guns. I know enough about them not even to touch one. But if you had a gun with two barrels, which they have the traditional 20 gauge shotgun on the top barrel and the 22 long rifle semi-automatic on the lower barrel. So they all made it out. They already make over and under guns anyway for different kind of types, like probably than that. I don't know anything about guns, but but I know they can do this, you know. So if they put in a lethal round in the top barrel on one trigger and make it easy enough to use for somebody to differentiate the second trigger to fire the lower barrel with a drug dart in it. The pharmaceutical number two part of this is for the pharmaceutical company, which a friend of mine feels they already have such drugs. But if not, I'm sure they can target and make them because they're a designer drug industry, pharmaceutical industry. They target what they make, the effect they want it to have on making the drug, how they make the drug to do that. They just have that technology. So I have total faith in the science behind it, that they can create a drug that would drop somebody in a drug dart gun in like just instantly, basically. You know, fast dispersing, I understand exists. Drug injection, you know, if a drug dart hit you and they pulled it out, it would be too late because it's auto-injecting. I would think. I don't know nothing about dart guns, but they can be made but to work that way. They're made for the drug. The money is in it for the drug gun manufacturers to build such a gun, okay, and the money's in it for the pharmaceutical industry to develop such a drug that would drop somebody that fucking quick, that, you know, that would be like, so the split the second decision would be for the law enforcement officer or tactical unit or private citizen defending themselves in their own home or whatever, somebody breaking in, and would you need lethal force or would the drug dart work? You know, I mean, so it depends on various factors, and that split decision making judgments that calls that I don't care to involve myself in being responsible for that kind of shit. But I recognize what's involved, and if you had this option, it wouldn't be you know, mandatory that you use a drug dart gun on somebody instead of a bullet. I mean, if you need to use a bullet, if lethal force is being used on you, the chief said you have to use the lethal force back, and I understand that. But if there's a split second decision where you can hit somebody in the thigh or the rear end or the chest or the arm or whatever with that drug dart and have it instantly inject and have it fast acting within, say, targeted for like 2 to 5 seconds to drop somebody to the ground, you know, 3 to 5 seconds or whatever, you know, just once they're hit and they start to become unconscious and it starts to take effect immediately. I understand drugs. My thinking on how they can do that with drugs like that, I don't know anything about chemistry really than layman's language or a class I had in high school, but what makes me think this is the drug Narcan for the overdoses on the opioid drugs. How once they're injected with that, within a very short time, it acts on the whole body to negate the opiate in the system, and it stops them from ODing. So if something can act that fast to stop them from Narcan like that, or whatever they call that stuff, then they can make a dart that can drop you in just a few seconds. They can make a chemical that can do that. I have no doubt the pharmaceutical industry, the wonders they already do, can do this. And the money would be in it for them, for the profit, for the demand for it, if they can do this. To work with the gun manufacturing industry to make a gun that can deliver these in the second chamber, a barrel below the lethal barrel, and make it with a trigger that you can decide. I guess you would have to default it for law enforcement to the lethal trigger, and then they would decide if they need to use the non-lethal option of the drug dart. But this is some serious shit, and I think this is the answer to the problem, or part of the answer to lower, anyway, the number of shootings that do occur by firearms. If you can drop somebody with a drug dart, if they get hurt dropping to the ground, scraped up or something, and they want to complain about it. That's just too fucking bad. You shouldn't have been doing the felonious thing you were doing or whatever to get shot at in the first place, dropped in the first place, you know. So that's not an excuse to complain or sue anybody over. If a society adopts this, the way I'm proposing, call it the Podsobinski bill. Podsobinski bill. Okay, to develop firearms this way and drug darts on the bottom chamber and so yeah, profit me into this because I'm a very poor person. I have no income. So how you see this is amazing. I don't know. Thank you for that too. So contemplate that and have a nice whatever part of your day you're in, and have a nice whatever part of your day you're in there. And I hope this idea is a good idea, catches on, because I think it's a good idea and part of the solution to the problem of mass shootings. If you had a way to drop people, even regular felons, you know, who are running away from law enforcement, and they would normally have to use a lethal shot, then they have the option to use a non-lethal option. So that's all I'm saying, a non-lethal option to the final lethal option. Dig it. I hope it happens. Free gift, a little pearl from me to you. A pearl of wisdom from me to you. So have a nice day now.